my wife saw it. Told her the whole story. Good. She didn't see me for like 3 days, so she needed something to talk about other than yelling at the kids. All right, Boston College will be our seventh team that had the week off to prepare, and certainly they will be ready to come here and play their very best. They always do. They're always very difficult games, and it's a team that, quite interesting enough, has really evolved into a very difficult team to defend offensively with both the two running backs, and Dylan and Daly, just outstanding backs. One's 240 pounds, 250 pounds, depends on what scale you look at, but both of them are just outstanding. Dylan has got the burst to get to the edge, the physicality that you're going to need more than one guy to bring him down. Unfortunately, they lost their starting quarterback, but the kid that's gone in there was a baseball player, but he plays with great confidence. He's comfortable back there, and he's just a savvy kid. He does what he's asked to do: play action pass, gets the ball to White, who's a really good receiver. But the bottom line here is this is one of the top scoring offenses in the country. Mike Bajakian's doing a great job. I know Mike, he's an outstanding offensive coordinator, very good offensive line. So we've got our hands full there. Defensively, they've lost a lot of guys in the back end of their defense. This is traditionally a defense that turns over a lot of NFL players. So they've got some younger players back there that are going to be good. So, again, from our perspective, it's continue to execute at a high level offensively, control the line of scrimmage as best we can against a team that really wants to assert themselves in running the football. It should be a great matchup for our football team. So that, we'll let you fire away.
Brian, what do you remember about Dylan from the recruiting process?
That he was a really good player. Somebody that we had offered and would have liked to have come to Notre Dame, but I think there were other reasons maybe that he didn't want to come here. I don't know what they were. We never really had an opportunity, but felt like BC was the best fit for him, and it's obviously worked out quite well for him.
With Ruland has had a long career here, although kind of in the shadows. Do you ever kind of wonder what he would have turned out to be like had he not had 83,000 surgeries?
Yeah, he's had quite a few and extensive, and I think a lot of it is his love for playing the game. First of all, he loves to play and he loves being with his teammates. There's a connection there that has kept him persevering through all these injuries. I think others would have probably moved on, but I think what has separated him from some other players that I've had that have had multiple setbacks is his personality, which you guys have gotten a chance to see a little bit of this year, that the players have such a tight relationship with him that he did not want to give that up. And so it's nice to see him finish off in his last year here with some playing time and have some success. So that's really what I think his legacy is, just overcoming a number of injuries and now really getting a chance in his last year to contribute to success.
You mentioned yesterday you might know more about Shane Simon.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's gonna have surgery tomorrow. It's what we had feared. It's a fairly significant injury, one that he'll be able to fully recover from, but it'll be a lengthy process. Dr. Radigan will do that surgery tomorrow, It involves, the tendon, the patella tendon. Outside of that, I would probably be getting in a little bit outside of my comfort level in terms of the other things that need to come together there. But something that they're very confident that he'll be able to recover and be back next year for.
And probably no contact in spring then for him?
Most likely, most likely.
Last one from me. Claypool, I know you mentioned at one point there was a guy up in Canada that tipped you off to him and sent you basketball film.
Yes.
Has he had any tips since, anybody that was worth going up there and looking at?
Well, he was a good friend of Mike Denbrock's, this gentleman that gave us the film, and so Mike knew him, and that's kind of how the trickle-down occurred in terms of getting the information on Chase. So maybe Mike is chasing those guys down at Cincinnati now.
Just some cleanup questions right here.
I'm sorry, Tim.
You mentioned yesterday Simon was the only one of note, but Jason Adamiola.
Yeah, he had an ankle sprain.
It's an ankle sprain?
Yes.
And you anticipate him being ready to go this week?
Yeah, I think he's day-to-day right now. He was in the training room today, and it's Monday, so we'll keep working on him day-to-day.
And then tied in with that, I believe that was Howard Cross's fourth game. Do you know if that's?
No, I think we have him for 3.
You have him for another?
Yeah, I'll double check. Let me double check with you, and then I can have we can have Scholl get back with you.
Okay.
What do you have? 3. Yeah, we have him for 3.
All
But
right, well, then I'll ask you next week again.
yeah, that's fine. But I'll double check, and we can get back to you.
Okay. Braden Lensley, I mean, last week, this time, we're talking about fatigue or fatigue syndrome, and
Yeah, he was just, we felt like, with everything that was going on with him, he was, we just wanted to protect him a little bit. And worked out pretty good. He looked pretty fast to me.
And you mentioned Moala, what a good football player he
Yeah.
is, and how that you need to find a place to get him on the field. Other than sharing the position at Rover with Owusu Koromoa, is there a position that you think either one of them can slide to in the future?
Sure. Yeah, but we'll deal with that.
You'll deal with that.
We'll
okay.
deal with that
So
later.
would that be Buck linebacker?
That will be something that we could talk about
Okay.
in the spring.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Brian, with Braden, we know he's had some injury issues, but are there other things within his game, maybe with fundamentals, that have maybe held him back from maybe reaching to the point where you can rely on him day to day or game to game as a potential starter, which he could be this week?
No, I don't think so. Not in particular. I just think, the workload at that position is such that it requires, just a whole different, day-to-day kind of preparation. And I think that transition is occurring with him and Joe Wilkins and Lawrence Keys. And, those guys are transitioning into that. And so, there's going to be some days where, they have to be protected, whether it's soft tissue or whether it's, just the load of academics and football, where we have to make coaches' decisions based upon, their readiness, and we do that by, seeing how they're practicing, how they're handling the load from week to week. So I just think this is a natural progression that they're going through, and they'll be bigger, they'll be stronger, they'll be all the things necessary for them to be much more consistent, as we enter into next season.
It's senior day this weekend, and this class of seniors went through the worst of it as freshmen with the 2016 season. How much do you feel like that impacted and maybe guided how those kids responded and led their careers here at Notre Dame?
Come on in, Nick. Come in. And did you want to talk? Okay, then get the hell out. He's such a great kid, man. That guy is amazing. Certainly there was some, residual benefits. They didn't seem to be benefits at the time, but they learned quite a bit, from that season in terms of, I think, the preparation and the locker room and all the things that are necessary to continue to build on your culture. And so some of those guys are leaders today that have been able to make sure that no one takes our process for granted and that you continue to work on it every day. So that experience definitely benefited those guys in their senior year.
When they're going through the senior day ceremonies, do you get emotional at all watching those guys embrace their parents potentially for their last game here at Notre Dame?
Well, I get emotional just, leading them, and so I don't know that it comes down to one day. I mean, look, you get emotional watching these guys succeed and struggle. So it's just not the one day. I mean, I think if it comes down to one day, then I don't know what you're doing the other days of the year. No, we have 3 more games. So, yeah, it'll be one where they're not playing in Notre Dame Stadium again. But I think what will be much more emotional is the last game that they play.
Right here, Coach. When you arrived here and the first few years, you were known as Mr. November. You finished Cincinnati 10-0, 10-1. Then there was a 5-year lull. You went 9-12 in November, where there was what's happened. Now you're right back on a very strong track, 7 straight there. What would you attribute the getting back that mojo this late in the season?
Better coaching, better leadership, just doing a better job, I guess, of leading our football team. To really sit here and kind of think about the tougher months in November. It's hard to put a finger on it. There are different things that occur in November. Whether it might have been injuries, might have been, I don't know. There's coaching decisions that you make. So there's a number of things. I feel really good where our program is, our culture, our coaches, our players, and feel like, the things that we're doing right now is benefiting our players so they can go out and play fast and free.
You did say that in January of 2018 there was a commitment, like what do we do to get strong in November, because that's been a problem. One of the things that's often mentioned is you need to taper back a little bit so you have your legs in November, but you've said the team wants to remain physical and not taper off so much. How do you balance those two?
Yeah, well, that's my job is to, they want a lot of things. But there's some things that, you have to, balance for them. So, we're not going as many periods as we were in September and October and November. I think what they wanted was that they want to maintain the intensity of the practices. I think that that's clearly the most important thing. It doesn't necessarily mean the duration. So you're balancing intensity with duration. I think what their comments were, to me, the captains more than anything else, is make sure that we keep the intensity up in practice. The contact needs to stay up. Don't pull off from that perspective. But I still have to manage duration, workload, things of that nature.
I think Drew Tranquil was the one who commented a couple of years ago that by the end of 2017, they were just really so fatigued that they were running on empty pretty much, or fumes at the end.
Yeah, I mean, again, last year we traveled all over the country. I thought we were playing pretty good football at the end of the year as well. So I think that's a commitment year-round to conditioning, weight training, mental and physical. This team's got mental toughness. You can define mental toughness any way you want, but I think it's, in the way they play, they're doing their job, and they're holding each other accountable, and they're doing that in the weight room as well. There's no guys in there cutting corners. They're doing their job in the weight room. They're doing their job in the training room. That training room was packed this morning. I mean, packed. And you do that with a commitment towards getting yourself ready to be the best you can be on Saturday. When you're doing that on a Monday, that's mental toughness. That's an accountability in November that you need, and we're seeing that.
Just wanted to ask also, Kyle Hamilton, he seemed, was he okay?
Yeah, he's clear. He was cleared. He came back in the game and played after he was evaluated for brachial plexus, stinger, that kind of an injury.
Thank you.
Right.
The last couple of weeks, Ian's sort of shown some new stuff. I think you've been pleased with that. I was curious from like a coaching standpoint if Chip Long has also sort of found some new buttons to push, or you've sort of collaborated with him to push the offense in some different ways where things have clicked a little bit differently.
No, we've made some adjustments in practice that I think have helped Ian. We're not scripting as much in terms of just calling it off a script and running it, from a particular area on the field. We're on the sidelines, and we're running plays much more like a scrimmage. So Ian is getting plays from the sideline, and getting it in much more of a game-like fashion instead of just standing there and getting it off a script and almost it being formulated for him. We wanted it to be one where he had to see it, digest it, and then we would coach it after the fact in film study, because it seemed to me that we looked great in practice because he already had the answers to the test. And in this way, he was, again, I know it's a poor analogy, but he had to show us the work by going through all the progressions before he saw it. He didn't know what the play was. And I think that's really helped him decipher what's going on and what he's seeing out there. So long answer to your question is nothing different relative to schemes as much as teaching and how we're practicing it. And I think that's helped him. And I think Tommy's done a really good job of changing some things up in terms of past pictures and things of that nature. So we felt like we needed to do a better job coaching, quite frankly. He's too good of a player, and he wasn't playing to the level that he's capable of playing, and so we needed to take a good hard look at how we were coaching it. And it's benefited him. He's playing the way he should be playing.
We've only seen Phil Dracovic in sort of some small spots this year, but on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, how has he developed through the course of the season? Has he sort of picked up what we saw a bunch of in August, where you saw a quarterback who was making progress?
Yeah, I think he shows some real signs. I don't know if you saw the throw. He threw they were in a two-trap, blitzed the strong safety off the edge, and the corner was sitting down for the rollover, which is a trap, and he throws the the sideline up, and that's hard to do, when you don't get a lot of reps. He shows some real signs that you don't normally get those opportunities to back up quarterback and execute them correctly. But it's hard being the backup quarterback and stay locked in all the time. So there are a couple of things where you get, you scratch your head, but I just think it's just a matter of time. Once he gets in there and he gets a lot of work, we feel really confident that he'll be successful.
And sort of as you manage the program, I don't know at what point of November, or you wait to December to have the fifth-year conversation with guys. When do you plan to do that?
We've had a lot of them
already.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Brian, 3 weeks ago we sat here and asked you about 300 questions about Ian Book and Phil Dracovic and quarterbacks. How do you feel like Ian has handled that noise in the last 3 weeks, and are you surprised at all by the way he's handled it?
I think he's had to come up with some ways to obviously avoid a lot of it, and I think he's done a nice job. Some of it is going to seep through naturally just because of the nature of the position at Notre Dame. You don't come to Notre Dame as the quarterback expecting to have to wear, earplugs. You're going to hear it, and you have to be able to deal with it. And I think he's figured out how to do that. He's going to get way too much credit for wins, and he's going to get way too much blame for the losses. And I think he's balanced that out. I think we're coaching him better. I think he's playing better. I think he's playing at the level he's capable of playing, and I think he can play better. So again, I just think that there's a young player there that's getting better down the stretch here, and I think there's more out there for him.
And then as the team as a whole, how do you feel like they have responded since that loss at Michigan?
Well, I think the proof is in the way they played. They've executed very well. They've been physical and controlling the line of scrimmage in both offense and defense. I think we had one false start penalty. That's been something that's been an issue for us. If you go back to the Georgia game, we were all over the place. Now, again, that was home versus away, but still, that's about personal discipline and unit discipline. A lot of good signs in many of those areas.
Brian, to your left, quick housekeeping with McKinley's foot. Is
Yeah.
he out for this week?
We'll have a better sense of him today. He's out of the boot. We'll run him today. We'll get a sense. He was on the Alter G at a percentage that allows us to begin to run him, and then I think we'll probably get a better sense Tuesday, Wednesday.
A follow-up on Book, you mentioned after the game he found a mechanism for dealing with being a quarterback at Notre Dame. Is that just blocking out the noise, or is there
No.
something else?
No, I think kind of what I said. Look, it's you can't bury your head in the sand. You've got to be aware of your situation, and that just comes with being here at Notre Dame. You want to be at Notre Dame and have the bright lights. That's comes with this territory. That's why you choose to come to Notre Dame. But there has to be a time where you push all that stuff aside for a few hours and come back to it later. It'll still be there. You still got to deal with it. So I just think he's found a way that I can put that stuff aside and I can go have fun with my teammates and play this game without all that. And maybe he was carrying that with him 24/7, and he found a way that just put it aside. It'll be there when you get back and deal with it then.
Compartmentalizing, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think that's I'm a football coach. I try to stay away from SAT words.
Brian, I wonder if you could take us back to when you were growing up in Massachusetts and what it was like following Boston College and their football program through the years, and what have you seen during that time?
Well, I wasn't following Boston College that much growing up. I mean, it was more Notre Dame. I didn't pick up Boston College until, I was just about ready to leave, and that was a little bit of the Holy Cross Boston College games that were being played, that were competitive back then. But I wasn't much of a fan of anything but Notre Dame, really, as growing up. That's all we had on TV. Boston College wasn't, on the television set much growing up in Boston. It wasn't until, I was gone from Boston that BC started to be played on radio and television.
With around the time Flutie and things
Yeah.
started to take off then.
Yeah.
What have you seen of their program, since, the uptake as they've grown with the program?
Well, I just think, from a football standpoint, being in the ACC has obviously benefited them greatly. They have certainly a reputation of being a physical football team. They have, obviously going back to Coach Coughlin in terms of, they've either turned out great defensive players or obviously the tight ends, quarterbacks. I mean, I played Boston College when I was at Central Michigan with Matt Ryan. I mean, it's always been a program that has turned out really fine players year in and year out, and an extremely competitive football team that can beat anybody on any given day, and certainly know the difference here that when they're playing Notre Dame, this is a big game, and we know, obviously they're playing for bowl eligibility, so there's a lot playing for this game.
Coach, you mentioned you started talking to guys about next year and coming back for a fifth year. have you had conversations with Ian, and do you expect him back next year?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of the guys. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but these are conversations that we try to have with guys that have eligibility remaining, because I really don't like to have 28 guys that are seniors and do this thing twice, walk them out twice. So we try to have some conversations with them. And then, we're obviously trying to help them make some decisions on, NFL and things of that nature. So a lot of these conversations are percolating. They're not priorities right now, but we like to lay the groundwork right now.
Thanks.
You got it.
Coach, with the win on Saturday, you'd be undefeated at home for the second straight season. How much pride do you take in that, and what goes into staying undefeated at home?
Yeah, our players take great pride in protecting, their house, if you will. It's been a big source of pride in terms of our summer workouts. It's clearly a goal of ours. Winning at home is important. It sets up your schedule because you're generally playing 6-7 games at home. It sets up your year. So, yeah, we take a great deal of pride on it. We have a great student following. We love playing in front of our students and our fans. It's a great atmosphere.
And then Sean Crawford will be playing on Senior Day on Saturday. He's obviously been through a lot, but
Yeah.
to see him playing,
Yeah.
being able to walk out in the pads and the uniform on Senior Day, what does that mean to you and for him?
Perseverance. He's gritty, tough. And he was right in the middle of the action on Saturday. And again, he's come back from an elbow injury, but this might have been his healthiest year so far, and it was a pretty severe elbow injury. But yeah, just great to see him out there competing, physical. And he's a great leader for us as well. So yeah, it was nice to see. Thank you, everybody. Good. Thank you.